Welcome back to In Conversation with Lone Star Pace. I'm so excited today to be joined by Shaun Auckland. Shaun is the Senior Manager of Government and Community Engagement for the South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource, which is more commonly known by its acronym SPEER. SPEER's mission is simple and aligns a lot with Lone Star Pace's mission, and that is to advance the uptake of energy efficient services, practices, and policies, not only in Texas, but also in Oklahoma. So today, Shaun is here, and we're going to focus on how SPEER helps local governments encourage and promote building efficiency through various programs and how CPACE fits into that equation. So, Shaun, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Olivia. I'm very excited to be here.
Yay. So I would just love to hear sort of from your vantage point. You're the one who's out there working with these local governments. Where do you see that cities and counties kind of struggle the most when it comes to incorporating energy efficiency, particularly in their commercial building stock?
The challenges fall into four main categories. First, the translation gap between policy and a private sector action. Local governments are really good at managing their own facilities. They have over, 150 entities reporting energy reductions. But when it comes to influencing private commercial buildings, there's a disconnect. Um, Cities have sustainability goals and climate action plans, but lack the regulatory authority or practical mechanisms to engage building owners who see energy efficiency as either too expensive or not their problem. So, in that second category is financing for equipment upgrades and proper training for building managers. And that's kind of the commercial side aspect. Building operations are a large part of a commercial sector and a local government's largest part of their budget. And so there's also kind of a lack of strong build performance standards with Texas updating their energy code. So, with building energy efficiency efforts, there's a strong drive that's going to have considerable job growth in energy efficiency through the next decade, but there's also a skills gap for energy efficiency roles. And so, with training, is how SPEER is really kind of pushing that forward. We offer a building operator certification program, which measures with these training programs, these can really reduce energy consumption within a building by as much as 20%, while also optimizing building equipment performance and occupancy comfort. And that's huge with commercial and local governments on a reduction in cost. The other aspect is SPEER is starting to really grow training specifically and this energy focus, but with the aspect of building those skills for operators. And so we have an online training program that we're rolling out right now.
So what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is there's a lot of challenges, right, for these local governments, for private sector businesses. There's a skills gap, there's a data gap, there's a funding gap. So it seems really intimidating, and that's sort of what we find as well on our end. Like when people want to incorporate building efficiency, but it gets value engineered out either because it's going to be too expensive, or it requires a skill that we don't have. So there are a lot of stumbling blocks, and I'm interested to hear from you. What are some of the most effective tools or programs that you have seen cities incorporate to overcome some of those challenges?
Well, specifically with for local governments, the
Mhm.
State Energy Conservation Office under the Texas Comptrollers, they have several mechanisms to support local governments and to overcome those challenges. One is the skills gap on having enough staff and staff, maybe an engineer in this space. So SECO has a program called the Preliminary Energy Assessment, where they have third-party consultants come in and provide an evaluation on their energy consumption, and then provide high-level report on those low-hanging fruits they can approach. And then they also have another mechanism that is free to local governments where it's technical assistance. And so local governments can apply for this technical assistance. And then that space is specifically with utilizing and providing some engineering technical assistance for a specific project. For example, if a local government with their water operations, they want to shift and have stronger conservation efforts with water, but also energy, they're hand in hand. They can bring in utilizing the technical assistance program with SECO, and they'll evaluate their public water system and provide different ideas on what they should implement for their next capital project and how they can approach that.
There's two different sort of sides of the equation, right? There's local governments and what they can do at their own municipal buildings and the way that they can be more energy efficient. And then there's also tools that they can promote for their private sector businesses to contribute to the overall effort of making the community more efficient. And CPACE is obviously one of those. The local government has to opt into the program to make it available to their private sector building owners. So can you talk a little bit about the CPACE program and the advantages that you think are often overlooked, I guess, from a local government perspective?
What we have found is not all local governments have specifically a department that focuses on energy management for the private sector and public, but they generally have a section within their agency that's focusing on emergency response and resiliency. And so that is an overlooked aspect that PACE can really support. Then another one is actually something I hadn't mentioned that I really want to mention is that is with economic development without a fiscal risk. So CPACE and other PACE programs, it really offer an opportunity for you to redevelop this space that is maybe absolutely beautiful within your community, but just needs that capital support for upgrades. You know, we look at our communities in small towns in Texas, and I'm such a huge fan of going to county seats, and then you look at that like space around the county seat, and there's some of these gorgeous buildings, they're empty, and CPACE and PACE programs are a great mechanism for economic development in those regions to really bring back and bring your downtowns and community more alive. So it really attracts good infrastructure and private investment into existing buildings. Uh, and then it also allows for cities just to have that administrative role, but not in financing.
It's kind of a win-win for everyone. And one other thing that it does is it creates jobs. So, that's also a great economic development driver for communities. So I would love to hear from you. I'm sure you have cities that come to you, local governments and counties that come to you and say, we want to be more energy efficient, but we just don't know how. It just seems like too tall of a mountain to climb. What are some of the what's some of the advice that you give local government officials that come to you who really have the desire, but just don't know where to start?
When cities make the energy performance more visible, market forces start to work. We've seen through EPA research that buildings entered into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, on average, they have 2.4% savings per year. That building owners don't want to be at the bottom of the performance list. And they will be when they put their information in Energy Star. And they're like, oh, look, there's this other building that does the same type of actions and services, but they save more energy than we do. So commercial tenants increasingly ask about energy costs before sometimes signing leases. That's important.
Absolutely. Yes, we're seeing a ton of, tenant demand for sustainability. Building owners care about it. Their, investment committees care about it. There's a lot of sort of demand for resiliency and efficiency, especially in Texas, where we have population growth and lots of businesses moving here. We have to protect our resources. So, Shaun, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge. I wanted to give everyone the opportunity, if they have questions for SPEER or for Shaun, that they can reach out. I'll include her info on the closing slide. But Shaun, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.